You're listening to WXED 107.3 FM. This is DJ Nikki in the studio today for your weekly news wrap-up brought to you by elwoodcity.org with my co-host Cassie. I'm a little bit froggy today, and that is because I decided I was going to be a rock star last night, and I went out to karaoke, and I did some crazy performances, so forgive me if I sound like Johnny C today.
What did you sing?
I sang some Disturbed.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
At karaoke?
Yeah.
That's an interesting choice.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because I love the shock and awe factor of doing different genres back to back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, I was up on stage singing some oldies doo-wop music, and then our very next song was Down with the Sickness.
Good one. Good one. I know one time I went to karaoke with my friend, and we ended up singing Enter Sandman by Metallica, and everyone was like, what are they doing?
Yeah, so after that song, I went back to singing like some Snow Patrol because my voice was gone.
I bet.
Gone.
Are you a good singer?
It depends. Depends on the day of the week, I guess.
No. See, I'm not a good singer at all, so.
A lot of times, though, what I do, here's the trick. Being a good karaoke singer, and you know, I'm not talking about professional singers because they really do have to be legit if they don't have auto-tune, but to be a karaoke singer, the only thing you have to do to be good is to have personality. And that's it.
I think you have to be in tune a little bit, too. I've seen some pretty bad ones. Not
always. I know, like, if my voice is, say, like it is right now, I can pull off doing something that's just funny. Or if there's a part of a song that I know I can't hit the notes, I will do a character voice that is, you know, people think that I'm doing it on purpose to be funny, and really they don't realize I'm doing it because I can't hit the notes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, it's all like tricks of the trade, you know.
Yeah.
Like sometimes in the middle of a song, I'll start cracking jokes with the audience in the nanny voice or something, you know, and it's really just because I'm avoiding the fact that I can't hit that note.
Hey, it's all strategy, isn't it?
Right, yeah. So it's really all about just performing and interacting with people.
Yeah,
because when you interact with people, it's almost like the same premise as a magician. If you can distract your audience, they don't realize that you're being shady.
Yeah.
But it was fun. But yeah, so that's I sound rough today. I told Johnny C last night whenever I saw him, I said, I'm going to go in the studio and I'm going to record some drops. I'm going to tell everybody that I'm Johnny C. I'm just going to go up in there and be like, what's up? Yeah. He was laughing. Okay, so we got to get the new show kicked off. You want to kick it off with probably the biggest, most, I don't want to say controversial, but it's definitely going to raise some blood pressure. Go ahead, kick off our first story this week.
Well, the other day I was checking my emails and I had a press release from Bob Villella. He messaged me saying that the August electric bills are going to be high again, and the reason for that is because there was a lot of usage of electricity because August was very hot.
Yeah,
so,
and here's the other thing that happens. This is how rate adjustment works, is you can conserve your electric 20 days out of the month, but if you have 10 days out of the month where it's really, really hot and you're running fans, you're running air conditioners, blah, 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 they take whatever the highest spike was and charge you that rate whole month.
Really?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Well, it's just the way it works. And I mean, that's how it works with every electric company as far as your usage. Like whenever they read your meter, okay, for instance, in our recording program that we're using right now, if you look at the top of the screen, you'll see the green lines when we talk. This line right here, the yellow line, shows where the highest peak that we've hit. Like if I were to say, hey, Cassie, now you'll see that the red line shows you the highest peak. Now, even though during most of this interview, we're going to stay down here in the green, the way that electric works, it will charge you for whatever rate where the red line hit. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So whatever the peak was, that's the calculation for your rate.
Oh, right. Okay, I understand. That makes a lot more sense.
So when I was young, my grandmother, she was always very in tune with how much she paid for her electric. And she would always say, don't run too many things at once because you don't want it to peak high. She was like, you know, don't have 8 lights in the house all going at the same time, because then that kilowatt usage flips very, very high for that time period. Whereas if you turn one light on and then as you leave the room you turn it off and turn the next one on, you're still running those same 8 lights but not at the same time. So my grandmother was always very, I don't know, penny pinching when it came to utilities. And that's what she would always say, don't run too many things at one time.
I didn't know that. In fact,
So,
that's
for
a
instance,
really
if
good
you want to
thing
help
know.
save on your rate, if you have to run your air conditioner, shut as many other things off during that time as you can, and it'll save you on your rate.
I'll have to remember that. That's a really good thing to know.
There you go. Yeah. Like my kids would always have, video games and computers and, this and that and the other. So if we knew that we were going to run the air conditioner to cool down the house, we would have them shut the computers off, the TVs off, and, that way the rate doesn't really spike.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a quick, easy thing that people can remember.
Yeah.
Just
And
try not to- like my grandmother would never run the dishwasher, the washer, and the dryer at the same time, ever.
Yeah,
Because she
it's-
didn't want all the usage being at the same time.
it's a good thing to know, and I'm surprised it's not more common knowledge. Like,
Especially,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, especially when you live in a community with such a fluctuating rate.
Yeah, well, I'm sure the people that don't know this will definitely appreciate you telling them about it.
Yeah. Maybe the electric company won't appreciate it.
I was going to say, they might tell us to not air this one.
It's just my opinion. Don't run everything at once.
Well,
Okay.
anyways, yeah, there's been a lot of naysaying about that, of course, especially on standing up to Elwood Electric, as always.
Jonathan calls him Sudi.
Yeah, they are very passionate about what they are doing and saying and whatnot. And actually, the council meeting is next Monday, so I think
Now,
there's...
what's the exact date on that? Is that going to be the 12th?
Yeah.
13th, something like that?
I think it's the 12th.
Okay. And what time is that, 6:30?
I think it's at 6. It starts at 6.
Okay, so we're looking at September 12th at 6 o'clock is the next meeting. I'm just going to check my calendar real quick to make sure that we're not misinforming someone on the date. No, it is the 13th.
Oh, is it?
It's a Tuesday?
No, it's a Monday.
Oh, it's a Monday. All right, then, yeah, it is September 12th. 6 o'clock is the next council meeting for that. So all you Sudis out there, make sure you get to the meeting. Make sure you tell everybody, don't run everything at once.
Yeah, get the word out. Anyways, besides that, the other thing that really happened this week was that the school board meeting was last night, which was September the 8th.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about 2 different things that kind of had some relevance to what's going on, obviously, in the school and with the community. Specifically, the big thing was that, I think we talked about it last week, where the police are not going to be securing the games.
Right.
And obviously I didn't have too much information on that because they didn't have a whole lot of information on it at the time.
Right.
And they weren't releasing a whole lot of information until the school board meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually hoped that it would have resolved before the school board meeting.
I know
But
you were saying that.
I went yesterday and I actually talked to the school board president, and I asked her if that has resolved or who's going to be securing the game tonight. And she said that it has not resolved and that they did have to end up hiring a private security company to secure the games, and they're only securing the volleyball and the football home games. So all the other home games are going to be unsecured until they can find another option.
Wow. Yeah, that's a rough situation. I thought that it would resolve quickly also.
I think they're still in high hopes that it will, but obviously it's going to have impact on the school in general, because I'm sure that they probably have to pay more to secure the game with a private company than with,
Right.
the council. But
Well, I hope that they get that worked out. I know that, there's been a lot on the bigger news channels about different responsibilities that fall onto the school. There was just recently a kid who broke his leg, and there was no ambulance at the field, and he laid there
What?
with a broken femur for a half hour waiting for an ambulance.
oh wow.
So, the parents were up in arms, and they were saying that, they thought that there had to be an ambulance at every game, and then they found out when they investigated it that in the state of Pennsylvania, you are not required to have an ambulance at the field. You have to have an EMS crew who can administer first aid, but you do not have to have an ambulance.
That seems really dangerous, considering that a lot of people get concussions at
And so I
football
guess
games.
it falls on the school to hire an ambulance service. And what happened in that particular case was that the school was paying for an ambulance service, but the ambulance that was supposed to be there was out on another emergency call. So when they got the call in for this broken femur, the parents said that they could overhear the walkie-talkies, that they were frantically trying to find an ambulance.
Wow, that would be really scary. I mean, thankfully it was only, a break.
Right.
And not something, like life-threatening, like I said, a concussion or even heat stroke, because
right. But
that's
it's
quite
the same
common
thing,
as well.
With security. It's a shame that it has to fall upon the schools to hire private security, because the schools have such a reduced budget right now, because there was a very big lag, a hang up in Harrisburg, passing down the budgets for the school for, like a year or more, and the schools were starting to dwindle their budgets down to nothing. So that's a tough expense to have to take on right now too. Hopefully, I know that you mentioned last week that the school and the council have had a pretty good working relationship. So hopefully somebody can come up with some great brainstorming idea of how they're going to do it. And the problem is there's always been an ongoing dispute about the amount of hours worked by each officer that
I
we
think
have.
that's the main reason why they're having this issue right now, is because in the recent,
they're trying to find ways to save on the hours that they're putting our officers out there.
So I do think that has a lot to do with it. But, as you had said, I hope it resolves as well, because it's important to have the security at the games,
Definitely.
Everyone needs to
There
be
was just
safe.
in another neighboring community, not extremely close by, but not extremely far away either, there was a shooting outside of the football stadium during a game, and now they are canceling any students from coming in to see the game. They're still going to allow the game to go because of the schedule and how things work up to the playoffs, but they're not allowing fans to come in and see the game.
That's not cool.
And parents are, angry because they said, why can't they just amp up their security? Why can't they just hire more people? But it's because, everything's on a budget, and if the money isn't there for all the extra security needed, then you have to take the safe route. You can't have people getting hurt, So it's an unfortunate call, but I thought it was necessary.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. And I do wonder, actually, if the security company is allowed to have guns. Like, I don't know if they have the same rights as officers or not, because I'm thinking
it's going to depend on what security company it is. If an officer has the right clearances, they're allowed to be armed. I have several friends who are security guards that are armed security guards.
Okay.
It's a matter of, you have to take a course at a college, you have to get certified, and I don't want to be quoted as saying this, but I believe that it's called an Act 235, and that allows you to carry a gun and be at armed security.
Okay. I didn't know how that worked, because I'm thinking like security guard as like the guy that stands outside of a club or, stands around at a mall, and I'm thinking like they don't really have a whole lot of authority as such. They have
you're right,
enough to just tell you to stop, and if you don't, then they have to wait until a police officer shows up. So I didn't really know if this is really securing the games or if it's just
I definitely, it seems, as a parent, I probably wouldn't want my kids going to an unsecured game without police. That's just my personal opinion, but I'm like a worry wart kind of parent,
Yeah, but that's how your kids stay safe, So it's important that, the games are secure, and I do think that it would be best if we had our own city
police department there.
Yeah. Borough police doing it.
And, I agree with you 100%. So let's just, like I said, we'll just hope that they can work together on a resolution that works out for not only the budget, Elwood City and council and police, but also the budget for the school. I would say that if the school does have to hire outside security, hopefully it is a company that has the armed certifications to keep everything really safe.
Yeah, I hope so too. Anyways, the other thing that was discussed at the school board meeting last night was that the school board members kind of brought it up that not all the teams have matching uniforms. Like, for instance, the band members have gold and white and blue in their uniform, and the cheerleaders have blue and silver. So not all the teams exactly match, and
I see.
Some of the events that they go to, they're not required to wear their Elwood City uniform or their colors. The school board members were a little bit concerned about, like, why would they be allowed to not wear and support their school
Right.
colors,
Yeah, I mean, if they're going to be part of that athletic group, they're showing their support for their school by being part of that group, then they should be required to represent their school colors.
Yeah, that's kind of what they were getting at, but they don't actually have like a known policy that says anything about the uniforms in that way as such, or at least they haven't found a policy to follow. So they're going to do some more like researching on that. And if there isn't one, then they're going to try and kind of...
Well, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, I think so too, because they kind of want everyone to match. And I mean, like, I'm not from Elwood. I'm actually, I went to high school at Blackhawk, and I remember clearly our cheerleaders, our swim team, our football players, everyone matched. Everyone was in gold and green, and there was like absolutely no different...
No variation.
No.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I know a lot of times you'll see a set of colors for home games and then a set of colors for away games. They might consider that maybe, but that should still be... If they're at a home game, they have to wear their home game uniforms. If they're at an away game, they have to wear away game uniforms, because it shows not only support, but it shows unity. You can easily look at it, members of the same team, and realize just at a quick glance, oh, there's Elwood City.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of, again, what the school board was getting at.
Yeah.
It's like, how are you going to know that that's Elwood City if they're not wearing their school colors? It's in some way representing the school.
And now you're saying that Elwood City has lots of varying colors. Where I think they need to decide: are they blue and white and silver? Are they blue and white and gold?
They
need to decide what they are.
Yeah.
Have everybody uniformly matching.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good thing that they're gonna look into making that a little bit more of a outlined policy.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll probably look for that coming up here probably next year.
Yeah, probably.
At the earliest, yeah. Okay. Anything else happening over there at elwoodcity.org?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to bring this up because it was a bit of an interesting story. I got an email from a woman who said that she had a foreign exchange student come back and visit her after 37 years of not being here,
Wow.
If I wanted to interview her, I could go and do it. So I was like, well, yeah, that sounds pretty interesting. So I went and I interviewed the foreign exchange student who's here for just under 3 weeks. And she's staying with the same family that she stayed with whenever she was here originally.
Aww.
She's from, I think she said it was Singapore. That's what she said.
Okay.
She was telling me about how she applied, and she was like the last person in the foreign exchange group to find like a home. So she was lucky and got to go.
Aww.
And she was here in 1979 was her graduating year with Riverside.
Okay.
She graduated with a Riverside. They're senior people. She was just, like telling me about all the differences between her schooling over in Singapore.
Oh, yeah, the difference in the culture.
Yeah, and she was saying like over there's no fun in school. It's taken very seriously. Like what you hear about Asian school and how they're very diligent. There's absolutely no messing around.
Yeah, it's all about the work.
Yes.
And there's not extracurricular anything.
Yeah, she even said that, like, as I said, she graduated with Riverside class that year. I asked her, I was like, okay, well, did you go home and go to college? And she said, no, I had to finish up 2 more years of school, like what we would consider high school.
Wow.
And on top of it, for the time that she was away, she had to make up the time over there.
So all of her schooling here did not count towards her credits where...
Not really, but I guess...
homeschool was.
I guess it just kind of... Obviously, it gave her a year to do something different and not, obviously, like, get in trouble for doing it. Like, if you just skipped out on a year of school here, you'd be in big trouble. But, I think it just gave her a different experience.
Well, that's really nice. I used to always say to people, me as a parent, I don't think that I could send my kid away to another place
that far away
for their education. I mean, wouldn't even matter to me how far away if it was not within a quick day's drive. I don't know that I could do that. And I had this conversation with parents who have child actors and their children are off in LA or they're in New York. And, and then we had another conversation with a foreign exchange student here. Mm-hmm. The foreign exchange student said to me, because I was like, doesn't it drive you mad to miss your family? How does your family deal with you being so far away? And she said, we live so poor that their
Aw.
sacrifice was knowing that I would get to experience this education and have the connections and the contacts to have a better future. And then I realized that as heartbreaking as it would be as a parent to have your child go away for a year,
Yeah, you do what's best in their
if that
interest.
meant another 50, 60 years of progress in your child's life,
Yeah.
further than they could have gotten by staying home, that it would
Yeah.
be worth that.
Well, you know what? Like I told you before, my husband's English.
Right.
So he's been away from his family for like over a year now. He's just now planning to go back and visit them. I know it pains him every day to know that his
Right.
family is so far away. And you know what? Whenever I was over in England with him for a year, I felt the exact same way, missing holidays with your family and having them send you pictures and say, like, we miss you and Merry
Right.
Christmas, we're going to send you something. It really, really is just so upsetting. And
But sometimes, that sacrifice is worth it in the long run.
yeah, like,
and in your case, it was. You had to miss your family for a year, but you were able to marry the man that you loved, and he was able to become a U.S. citizen.
yes.
And
yeah.
I'm sure that it's taken a good amount of time to kind of settle into life and everything, and
We're still
have the
not
means to go
completely
visit. But
settled.
in the long run, it seems like such a small piece of the big picture.
Well, yeah, not only that, but like England and America even are just very different. It is so expensive over there and it's so hard to move out. Like me and him were recently just looking for places. We've decided not to get a place simply because we were going to save up our money and maybe look to go somewhere else eventually.
Yeah.
But we were looking at places, and that's completely doable as a young couple here to actually like buy a place and own it.
Right.
But in England, people who have professional jobs cannot afford to move out because the houses are so expensive.
I have friends who live in England, and my friend Liam is a very successful car dealer. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, car salesman. He works for a car dealer.
Yeah.
Here, if you're a successful car salesman, you have a fairly posh life. But over there, he is successful. He's one of the top rated 3 in the entire dealership, and he
Jeez.
still has to live with his parents.
Yeah, I know. My husband's sister is a personal trainer. She's like 20. I think she just turned 27. She still lives at home because she can't afford to move out.
Right. And
And she wants to move here because she just knows that there's basically
there's
no
a reason why they call it the land of opportunities.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
I
a
was-
gorgeous country over there, but
I was watching a
it's
show
not
the other
same.
day, and a kid from Michigan decided that he just absolutely had to live in Monaco. Absolutely was not going to take any other option. He wanted to live in Monaco, and he worked for 4 straight years here in a car dealership, saved up everything that he could, gave up his complete social life, and went to Monaco. And when the real estate agent said, well, how much can you afford? The number he gave blew my mind. He said about $1,500 to $1,600 a month for rent.
Wow.
To me, that sounded insane. That sounds
Yeah,
like
that's
the kind
like-
of rent that you
that's
would pay
California.
in New York or California or
Yeah,
Washington.
exactly.
And throughout the show, she started showing him apartments in his price range, and we are talking about an apartment that was 300 square feet.
Oh my
300 square
gosh.
feet. Okay, my house, just to put this in perspective, my house is 1,900 square feet.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I pay well under $1,000 a month. We're talking about, he has this apartment in Monaco, and it ended up coming in at like $1,750 a month for 300 square feet. And I thought, that is outrageous.
That is crazy.
Crazy. Yeah. I don't think people realize that our country itself is struggling, and even struggling is still a way better place.
Oh yeah. I
Then-
mean, we definitely have our downsides, like for instance, Elwood Electric, but
Well, I mean, there's downsides everywhere.
absolutely. Like I said, I lived in England for a year and I can't say it was like just great living.
Right.
It's $9 a gallon for gas. That's not,
Petrol.
yeah, well, petrol. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
But, then you can't travel anywhere. I know
Well, I
if
have friends who live in Canada, and it's the same way. They have family who live here in the United States, actually just over the line. They live in Buffalo, New York. Mm-hmm. But their family who lives on the Canadian side said, we can't afford to take a holiday off of work to go visit our family in New York because the money conversion makes all the hours that we worked worth almost nothing.
Jeez.
Because when they have to convert to American money, Canadian money isn't worth enough.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only about, I want to say, maybe 70 cents on the dollar. So for every dollar
that's about what a
you
dollar
earn,
is over in like English money. Like the
Right.
conversion rate's about the same. So
Yeah, so
dollars
they-
are actually worth less.
They were saying that, where someone living on the American side could work half as many hours and have the money to go to Canada to visit. In Canada, you would have to work double the amount of hours in order to come to the United States and visit.
I wonder if that's because they're so much more of like a socialist country than we are. Like I know that they have more affordable health care
Right,
and things
it's-
of that nature.
I always tell everybody, there's always a give and take for every situation.
Yeah.
Even with our situation here in our tiny little city of Elwood. But when you give up one thing, it has to be picked up somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, if we were to cut back on our police department to save money, the city itself would become a less secure and safe place to live. So your crime rate would go up.
Yeah.
So when you talk about paying a little bit more to our police officers, you're paying for safety and security.
Yeah, exactly.
So what's the price tag on safety and security?
Exactly. It comes down to what you're willing to sacrifice.
And, the other thing is maybe other communities pay less for their electric, but they pay more for taxes. So it's like, it's just tit for tat. It's, you know what I mean? It's one, I always tell everybody, it's a half dozen, six of the other. Mm-hmm. Because if you may save money in one area, but you're going to spend it somewhere else.
Yeah,
Because
it is true. I mean, you have to pay for your community. There's just no way around that,
Right.
You have to pay your taxes because you have to drive on the roads, and who pays for the roads but, the state. And they do it so that you can drive.
And,
But people...
I'm not saying that another electric option wouldn't be beneficial, because there are other things. There are a lot of people in this town, intelligent people, who are working on other better ideas. And some of the people are focusing on, really investigating the use of solar energy. And I've heard that there's going to be 16 new mega solar locations on the eastern coast. So, maybe Elwood can get in on that.
That would be really cool.
The other option that they're investigating is using hydroelectric power, because eons ago, the mills in Elwood were run by hydroelectric from the Connoquenessing.
Mm-hmm.
The Connoquenessing is not as large and raging as it was back then. However, the technology of the turbines has changed, and the turbines do not need to be deep water anymore.
Yeah.
So there are people working on other solutions that may save Elwood City money without sacrificing cutbacks in the police department or cutbacks in the road repair. So it may be something that comes to fruition in the future, but it's definitely something that's going to take a long time, and having thousands of people stand up in strife probably isn't that helpful.
Yeah, I see exactly what you mean. This
Yeah.
all goes back to one of our previous discussions about actually helping the community
Exactly.
as opposed to just complaining.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the biggest way that people can help is to educate themselves. Every amount of information, every piece you need is out there, especially in this day. You can look up anything on your smartphones. If you don't like smartphones, you can look up just about anything at the library, and you can look and see that these are actual realistic goals, hydroelectric power and solar energy. And Elwood Electric will eventually be up with its contract of the company that's buying its electric power from right now, and they may be able to lock themselves into a lower rate when that contract is up.
Yeah.
So it's not something that can be solved overnight, no matter how many people are mad about it. But if you take even just half the amount of people who are mad about it, who get, the gumption to educate themselves on other options, then all of a sudden, instead of having an angry council meeting where people just yell and complain, you would have a think tank of ideas.
Yeah.
And that's what people need to do. People need to get educated so that they can help formulate a future.
Well, hopefully people will start doing that, because I know that that is definitely one of the biggest problems with, society.
Right.
Not just here, but just
It's
in
everywhere.
general. Yeah.
It's everywhere. You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And
Yeah.
that has been a go-to quote from the beginning of time, So I would encourage everybody that if you think there is a problem, take a look at whether you are helping to solve the problem. Because if you're not, then you're part of it.
And I also just want to advise everyone to be thankful for what we do have, because again, after talking to the woman who was a foreign exchange student, you could have it a lot worse in other countries. Like, and she wasn't
Absolutely.
even like not well off there. She, you know, came from a pretty decent family, you know, like they're middle class, but nothing like what it's like here. You know, we are so privileged. And, you know, that was one of the things that she kept saying was, you know, she couldn't believe how differently we live compared to, you know, where she was living. You know, and that's just so true. People love to complain about their country and their city and whatnot, but they don't actually see the bigger picture of how much worse it could be.
Oh, and exactly. And a lot of people who live in this country, if they happen to see, you know, a snippet, just a video of some other country and the way they live, they immediately believe that it's propaganda.
Oh, yeah, you're right about that.
You know, they immediately believe that an organization has gone out and found the poorest of the poor, and that's what represents an entire country. But really, honestly, you can find the richest of the rich, and they probably scarcely measure up to middle class in this country.
Yep.
You know?
And even just like I said, like you think a place like England would be very, you know, I don't know.
Well
exactly.
off.
Well, exactly what you think it is. Like, oh, you have the queen and you have tea and
Right,
there's
and castles.
crumpets on the table.
Yeah.
And it's not like that. That's like the queen and like her little, you know, family
Exactly.
lives. But that's about it.
But that is the perception that people have when they think of England. And they don't think of, you know, little flat apartments with 6 roommates living together because they can't afford to pay the electric. And, you know, they're waiting 3 hours to catch a train to go to another city to work.
Oh,
just
yeah.
So they can, just so they can make $8 an hour. And, you know, then
Yep.
they, you know. And again, though, there are people who decided that you can either change it or complain about it, and which is why a lot of times you would never see muscle cars in England.
No,
like you do
not
here.
at all.
And it's because of the price of the fuel. But you will find tiny, itty-bitty smart cars.
Yes.
And
everywhere.
it's because someone somewhere along the line said, you know what, let's help out the economy by making it cost less for people to get to work. We're going to come up with these smart car ideas. And that's how things like that happen. And it didn't happen overnight.
Yeah, literally only the rich people there can afford to have anything.
Actual cars.
Like, yeah.
Right.
Like what we see on the road every day.
Exactly.
No,
Yeah.
like what you see over there is like little Toyotas, you know, like
Tiny
little
cars.
4-cylinder cars.
Yeah, like Fiats and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, they're just itty bitty. I would say I have probably 6 friends who live in England. 4 of them don't drive. They take the train. And 2 of them have the tiniest little cars you've ever seen.
Yeah, I know. They're like little death traps. You know, like for an American to get in a car like that, you feel like really low to the ground and like really unsafe.
Well, you know, I drive a big Durango.
Yeah.
But my fiance drives a Scion XA. And I feel like I'm getting into a go-kart.
Mm-hmm.
And literally his Scion XA is bigger than the cars that my friends in England drive.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And I was like, what do you mean your car is smaller than a Scion? How could you even deal with it?
Oh, I know. It's crazy just how privileged we really are, and we take it for granted every day, you know? We truly do.
Right. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to ask you if that is a wrap for this week.
That is a wrap for this week.
All right. Well, it was good talking with you this week. It was a little bit lengthy, but that's okay. We're girls. We can get away with it.
Yeah.
So as you guys always know, our sessions are pre-recorded, and you will hear this on Saturday at 6. Make sure you guys make it to the meeting over there. The council meeting is Monday at 6. We wish you guys the best weekend out there, and we'll see you next week here on WXCD 107.3 FM, The Moose.